Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Ask Valor Masterminds Podcast. I'm Galen.
I'm Joe.
And we're coming at you from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. This podcast is brought to you by CR Gutters and A Advanced Septic Services. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the show. Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, where you are at. Welcome to the Ask Valor Masterminds Podcast, brought to you by CR Gutters and A Advanced Septic Services. My name is Galen.
My name is Joe.
And we are coming at you virtually from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. Joe, for our new listeners and viewers, can you give us a review or how the podcast started?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally our podcast started as a Facebook group page where we wanted to bring business owners together to speak on different topics, ask questions, and kind of just help each other in the business community. Since then, we decided to start our podcast, which is doing the same thing, bringing on guest speakers and experts in different fields. Last week, we had Justin, the owner of Heritage Distilling, come on. This week, we got an amazing woman who does content marketing and marketing in general. So that's kind of what it's about, bringing businesses together to share information and tips on how people can grow their businesses.
So Joe, our last episode, you mentioned we had Justin Stiefel of Heritage Distilling, and it was a really, actually a couple different cool stories on how they were able to pivot during this COVID-19 coronavirus thing. What were one or two takeaways that you had when Justin spoke to us?
All right, so a couple things is really just build your network so that you can grow your network and grow your business. He's got some cool projects that he's lined up from relationships that he's built. Second is kind of what's going on right now is just learning to pivot your business when your situation or your business changes. Take chances as a business owner. And the most important to me is he referred me to PBR hard coffee.
There you go.
During our conversation, we talked about spirits. I talked about beer. He said that PBR has a hard coffee drink, which I went out and bought, and it's amazing.
There you go. And I'm a brown spirits guy, so it was really cool for him to come on because I do enjoy his product. One thing that really stuck with me is he said 80% of life is showing up. It's your job to do the other 20% to finish it. They work hard to build their business, and how they've pivoted is really cool. As of Monday, April 13th, they're able to produce 30,000 gallons of hand sanitizer for the local community and for businesses in the area nationwide. So much so that they even got a tweet from Mark Cuban, which is pretty cool. So thanks, Joe. So quickly today, Joe mentioned it, but we'll quickly introduce Maureen's slide. Joe, I'll have you formally quickly introduce her before we do a formal introduction later. So who do we have joining us today, Joe?
So today, the amazing Maureen Jann, she is the owner and founder of SuperDeluxe Marketing. We'll get into more of that later.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you for being here.
Joining us. All right. So usually we like to start the podcast off with, there's a motivational quote. So cue the pump you up quote of the day. So today, in light of everything going on, there's a lot of frustration. I just found a quote that resonated with me, and hopefully it'll resonate with some of the audience. So from Irma Bombeck, she's a humorist. She passed away already, but the quote is, "Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but never gets you anywhere." So I think today's climate, people are feeling the exact same thing. We're doing things, we're stuck at home, but physically, we're not going anywhere. Emotionally, we're cramped under the same space. Social people want to get out. Extroverts are crazy going inside and everything. But it just resonated with me today. So, Joe, when you brought the topic of content marketing or marketing, I just think it's good for businesses to control the narrative with the hand you're dealt, play the hand you're dealt. So, that's why I chose that quote. So hopefully people got something out of that. Our next segment goes to our CR Gutters Did You Know moment. So CR Gutters, one of our sponsors for all your gutter needs and everything. So cue the first image, content marketing. So we're going to go over 3 stats, and we're asked Maureen to give her expertise, her comment on it. Thanks. So the first stat, content marketing gets 3 times more leads than paid search advertising. So Joe or Maureen, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I want Maureen to give it.
All right.
I have a lot of opinions, so I'm happy to like take this one on. Well, the reality is people just don't trust advertising. That's just not a thing. Advertising is technically a much better awareness play versus a direct like to purchase play, where you're actually going to be building the relationship that you need to have with a client or a customer is through content, right? It's about you're asking questions and a company that's reputable is answering them in a robust, genuine, accurate way. And if you have good content versus, so you have an answer to a question that you actually have versus an ad that's just trying to like sell you stuff, like what are you gonna go for? I'm gonna go with the expert answer. So I think that's probably why that quote or that statistic is so important.
Awesome. You're talking about, you know, when we talk about like the sales funnel, the awareness on the top, we as marketers do our job to create awareness, but transitioning into your next quote will kind of give a true barometer of that. So our next image, or next Did You Know by C.R. Gutter's stat is, the most common measurement of success for content marketing is total sales. Wow. So if you're selling something, it must be working. Maureen, is it that simple?
Nothing's ever simple. Marketing is complicated. You add like the whole conversation about attribution, everything gets 10 times more complicated. But the reality is like, I like reality. Apparently I use that phrase a lot. Hey, the reality is, maybe that should be my show name. So I think people need to make sure that they understand that unless that the content that you're producing is ultimately one step on the path to sales, like it's not working. So, it's important to set up ways to be able to measure those moments as you go along. And it may be a long process, and it may take a year or 6 months or a month, whatever a long process looks like for you as a business. But at the end of the day, like it needs to ultimately be one step on the path to purchase for your customers. Others, like, why do it? Why waste your time?
And Joe, we've talked about this before. We meet with a lot of people, have discussions with a lot of people who think marketing is once you do it, like next week, next month, things start right away, right? I mean, how many times have we heard that, Joe?
All the time.
Yeah. So,
wow. I want to live in their magical world.
Yeah, we do too. So we'll take those clients all day long.
Yeah.
Our last did you know statistic, or did you know, is 70% of marketers are actively investing in content marketing. So I think one of the things we wanted to unlock to our audience is, you know, as we get into it later, after we get to know you, is what is content marketing? But 70%, that seems like a high number. Are people doing it even though they're not aware they're doing it?
Absolutely. I mean, the funny part is like content marketing is just words you use in marketing. Like that can come in a million different ways, right? Even the content that you have in an ad is content. You know, so it's really about being very intentional and focused about the words you use, because a phrase that I like to use a lot is words matter, and they absolutely matter. That is no joke. So everything from your blog to your, to your ad copy, to your your social media, it's all content, and it's about how intentional you are about that content versus unintentional. And once, like you had mentioned earlier about owning the narrative, please own the narrative, because there's a narrative out there, right? Like it's a matter of whether or not you're in control of it. So.
Right. Awesome. So now we're coming to the point where we have our coronavirus PSA, our public service announcement. So cue that image. So stand together by not standing together. So we put out a post, thank you to the helpers. So just a simple thank you goes a long way to the frontline workers. I mean, even the truck drivers, the grocery store people who are just putting their lives at risk, just trying to flatten the curve. So we just want to applaud everyone for doing their part. So now, Maureen, we want to get to know you, the individual, a little bit more. Cue Maureen's image. And Joe, I will have you formally introduce Maureen.
All right. So Maureen is the founder and managing director of SuperDeluxe Marketing. She's a graduate of San Jose University. She's an entrepreneur. She is a veteran business-to-business marketer. whose career in digital media has grown up with the internet. I'm not going to read all the stats that I have here because there's a lot, because she's amazing. One of the stats that I know that maybe is on there is she was actually featured in, I want to say it was the best 100 content marketers in the US. That's correct, right? Last year.
Yeah.
And I think it was 100, but I liked it because going through and reading who people were, it was like Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Bremerton, Washington.
Boom.
Right? So I know Maureen because she's a fellow, she belongs to a BNI networking group as well. She has a business called Spark Commons, which is a co-working space. She's co-owner in. So that's how I know her, and I know that she's an awesome person, and she provides valuable information that businesses need to know.
Thanks. That's a nice intro. And Galen and I apparently know each other from Seattle Startup Week in 2017 or
yes,
2014.
I can't remember, but I remember sitting in on your presentation, and you, as you said before we got on air, was like one of your first speaking engagements and everything. And yes, very cool.
Awesome.
So I just have one thing to say. In your bio, it says you have a passion about unusual shoes.
Oh,
so like how unusual? What is, when I think unusual shoes, I don't know how to grasp that. So when you say unusual shoes, how passionate are you, and about what specifically?
How do you guys feel about me just walking to the next room and getting a pair?
We're perfectly fine.
All right, hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Do it.
I feel this is important to illustrate.
Yes.
I want to say she has a pair of shoes with flowers on it as well.
Okay.
I've seen some red shoes. The unusual shoes, I'm intrigued to see what she brings in. Boom.
Well, are those like your pair of kinky boots there?
I know these all the time.
There you go.
I'm the best dressed quarantine girl ever.
Nice.
Yeah. Those are awesome.
So I'm deeply committed to unusual shoes because I think they're such a simple way to feel amazing. So
cool.
And to help you stand out.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We always try to find like a little personal nugget to open up our guests and everything. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So my first question to you is, what are some lessons learned as an early entrepreneur that you could share with our audience?
Oh, wow. That's such a big question. So as an early entrepreneur, I will say that you constantly trying new things is really important, and being okay with failure, because it's like, I know everybody avoids failure, and that's the goal, is not to fail. But the reality is you are going to fail. You're absolutely going to have screw ups. Things are going to break. You're going to do things are wrong because you're learning. And the best thing to do is make sure you put stopgaps in place to help you sort of, if you're going to fall down a hill, at least fall down only halfway versus all the way to the bottom of the hill. That's usually what I like to say. And then, just keep experimenting with my business. I'm a longtime marketer, but like I was not always the level of entrepreneur I needed to be to like actually support my family with my work. And it's a different thing. Being a hobbyist is different than supporting your family. And so I had to keep pivoting to find the right mix for me. Like, was I going to be full-time sales and outsource all my marketing? Was I going to be fully just doing all the work and then hoping that referrals came in? What was the right mix? And so I've pivoted my business like 3 or 4 times, and I wouldn't be surprised if other people have to do that as well.
Right. Awesome.
It's interesting that you say pivoting your, what you do is because all companies have done it, but like our companies had to do that as well, starting out with one thing and then climbing up and offering multiple things and then dialing it back down. So I get it.
Yeah, it's really important.
So what is the best piece of advice so far that you've been given? If you had to pick one.
Oh, honestly, it kind of goes to what you guys were saying from your last guest. It's about showing up. It's about showing up physically. It's about showing up with your whole attention. It's about showing up by not half-assing it. I mean, like just really showing up and putting your whole self into what you work on is probably the best piece of advice that I've gotten. And the other one that's really good is don't give people homework. If you give them homework, they won't do it. And in a business scenario, like this is probably the most important thing you can say. It's like giving people homework. Oh, well, I'm going to make this your problem instead of being the person responsible and helping guide them through the process. You're going to lose them in the path because they're not motivated. They don't have the same drive you do to have this thing finished. So don't give them homework, just usher them through the process.
Right. Because why would they be talking to a marketer in the first place? Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to pay you to tell me to do my own stuff kind of thing.
Right. And it's the way I actually collect content or subject matter expert information from people that I work with instead of waiting for them to write stuff. Because if they could write stuff, they would just have written stuff. So what I do is sit down in a Zoom meeting or like an in-person meeting, depending on, what part of the universe we're in. I record the conversation. I ask them questions that I need to get the ultimate answer for, and I record it, and then I get it transcribed. And so it's like a rough first draft for me. And they don't have any work to do except for they need to show up to the meeting, right?
So probably a silly question, since it's a marketing podcast. Why is marketing your business important? To all our listeners and viewers out there, why is marketing important?
Marketing helps remove barriers to sale. So bottom line, there are all these things. They have questions. They don't know who you are. They're frustrated by strategically using marketing to help knock down barriers through content and interactions. You ultimately make that path to your purchase so much easier.
Awesome. So you mentioned it, or the topic of today's podcast is content marketing. So for people that don't know that term, because in the past, we've had some crazy terms. When we had our biohacking episode, there were photo biomodulation, nootropics, all these big terms. When people hear content marketing, they may get the same reaction. So to those people, what is content marketing? And you touched on it a little bit, but your formal definition.
So my formal definition is that content marketing is the way you use words to help drive people down the funnel. So if they don't know who you are, then you're writing articles to help answer their questions so that you're the best answer and people start trusting you. Or they're looking for a specific product and you serve them an advertisement, and the words are what help drive them to click, that kind of thing. So it can be everything from blog articles to advertising copy to content marketing, or white papers or articles that get published on other people's websites. It's a variety of things, and it integrates all pieces of marketing, PR, advertising, brand strategy. All of it is hinged on great content.
That's good.
So
does that include video content as well?
Absolutely. I write scripts for people's videos all the time. It's a huge part of what we do. And honestly, like in a perfect world, you start with like a core piece of content, and then like a blog article with that overviews like 6 concepts. And then you take those 6 concepts and you blow them out into videos and social media statistics and all kinds of goodies, right? Because once you have a solid piece of content, it's a great way to, deliver it in a way that makes sense for your clients, whether it be video or social or whatever. So
because even on social, there are multiple channels, like how you do a LinkedIn post to Twitter to Instagram or Facebook. You could have the same core message, but then it's different on how you deliver it to those channels, right?
And if you're not doing it that way, you're doing it wrong, because each of those audiences requires a different tone and a different approach.
Okay.
So how can content be used as a tool during a crisis?
Well, I think the crisis is pretty, like, we are currently living in crisis land, which is challenging. So content marketing, what it looked like 6 months ago versus what it looks like now, is completely different. And I think there's a couple of big points that people need to like really focus on. I think there's be sensitive, but like don't send everybody an email about how these times are unprecedented. Don't send any more of those emails. We're good. We know they're unprecedented. You know what I mean? How many of those emails have you guys gotten from all the companies that you work with?
A lot of junk mail in my folder on those, right? So.
Right. So email is also content marketing. And if you're not doing that well, instead of sending blanket emails to everybody, get really focused to help sort of ensure that you're not being callous, and you're not tone deaf. So reevaluate anything that you're putting out there around social media or automated emails to make sure that like it is addressing the current weirdness. And also make sure that you're communicating your customers when it impacts them directly. They don't need to know that you're sad that there's a pandemic. They're good. They're cool. We know. We all know. We'll understand how it impacts them, right? Because that more specific, more targeted content will really, really help people get a focus and a grasp on why you're communicating with them. And then the other thing that I think people could really use right now is communicating how you're taking care of your community and your employees, but not in a weird virtue signaling kind of way. And virtue signaling is like that, when you take a picture of yourself, like cleaning up trash on the highway, so you can be like the sexy person cleaning up. Yeah, don't be that person. And as a company, it's gross. Be genuine, be authentic, really take the time and say, hey, you need to know this because we don't want you worrying about the people that have been serving you, that kind of a conversation. So I think content can be used in those ways to help you really drive home the fact that things are different, and people are, and the other tricky part is like, people aren't really looking for new products right now, right? That's not their goal. What they're doing in this moment is really, they're trying to make the best of what they have. And they are, and if you're a B2B company, like the other part that's tricky in that space is that a lot of businesses are either shutting the doors or reducing their budgets. So how do you market to people like that, right? How do you develop content that actually penetrates that kind of a barrier? And I think that you don't market to them. We got to switch gears. You got to change the goal, and it's got to be around those points where we're evaluating, making sure that our messages are clear and present and addressing current issues, that that you're communicating how this is going to impact them as a customer, and then how are you taking care of the people around you. So those are 3 big points I think that are critical.
So our audience is pretty diverse, from the solopreneur, entrepreneur, small, medium-sized business. So just real quick on the content, you covered a lot of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
So for some of the smaller operations, what's the frequency that people should be posting? Some people have a team to take care of that for them. Some people don't. Some people are busier. Some have more time at home to work on these kind of things. Is there a general rule of thumb you have with posting frequency on channels or videos or those kind of things?
I think right now it's really important to post something when you have something to say. So be discerning. Don't put a bunch of extra stuff out there in the world right now. Be, just edit intelligently. Like this, if you're going to do a weekly update to let everybody know how the progress is coming along now that their staff is reduced, like take that time. Or if you are overwhelmed because you're solo and you usually can outsource something, let them know. So having those conversations and just being very transparent when you have something to say via your social is probably what I would do if I were them.
One thing that I've taught that I learned is pain points. And I noticed that for us, we try to put out as much content as possible, but I've noticed that addressing someone's pain point and offering a solution to their pain point has gotten far better reach than just putting out general content.
Yeah, well, and I think that's probably another set of do's and don'ts that I typically run across is, you want to develop useful resources that are for specific niches that help solve those pain points, right? You can't do blanket blasts right now because nobody's hearing them. But if you are dealing with, first of all, your customers or the prospects who already know who you are, and you can address their challenges in pieces of content that are very specifically geared towards maybe their industry or their function or their family role, whatever your business is, right? Figure out who those people are. And usually I have people start with like, who's your most profitable customer and who's your most influential customers as a starting point for that. So go look at your data. And if you don't have data, start collecting data. So go look at your data and figure out who are those people and how can you dig deeper with them and help them through this crisis. Because if you are the person who offers them the nut of safety and are the Sherpa that drives them or helps them sort of survive this space, like who are they going to call on the other end? It's going to be you, right?
Right. And we'll actually have Maureen's information available. Cue that image on screen again. So for our last 5 minutes, we want to go into just some tips and tricks that you recommend. So you mentioned it about resources. So a lot of people in our audience don't have a budget right now to hire someone professionally. It's a lot of, we use this podcast to teach our business owners, fellow entrepreneurs, tips and tricks to empower themselves as businesses. What are some resources that can help make better content? Ideally, that would be free. So.
Yeah, I use a bunch of free resources. So I straight up so big part of content marketing is being found. And the best way you can be found is to know how people are searching for you, which is traditionally called search engine optimization. And I know Joe's company does it. And when you need like 2.0, definitely go to Joe. But like if you're at 1.0 and you're still sort of figuring it out, I love using answerthepublic.com and putting in a topic. So answerthepublic.com will aggregate all of the questions that are being asked out on the internet for that particular topic. And it's such a great place to start addressing your pain points, to find ways like to help you generate content. Like you can answer these questions as blog articles over time to help you get found and help solve your customers' problems. It's one of my all-time favorite resources, and it makes it so human. Like keyword searches and keyword research feels just painful, and you can get so techie and down in the weeds for it. But if you can just do it in human language and question format, I find that it's much more approachable for people at all levels.
Awesome.
Also,
yes.
What about press releases? Can you talk about that for a minute? Like how to create content, or maybe a free source that someone could use to put out a press release?
Okay, so I'm not a press release expert. I will just let you. So, but I will tell you, when I've written press releases, first of all, you basically have to write the story for your, do 3/4 of the story for your journalists. Actually find the journalists you want to target and customize your pitches to them. Don't slap it across a bunch and cross your fingers and hope it works. It needs to be custom and it needs to be personalized, and it's not an easy process. PR people, I envy. I genuinely don't envy them. What I do is celebrate them because that's not a job I want to do. But another resource that you might want to check out, I know Moz was giving away. Moz is another SEO tool set for keyword research to figure out what you should write about. I highly recommend going to check them out. They have some free resources, and they also were giving away their academy for free, to sort of help accommodate this. And then not a less free resource is Everybody Writes by Ann Hanley. I highly recommend that one as well. She's first of all, she's hilarious. Second of all, she just gives really good advice. One of the best things I took out of her book was something called The Ugly First Draft. Like I always tried to perfect everything on the first run, but in fact, you just slap it out there, get it up there, and then come back, sleep on it, and then come back the next day and actually create something beautiful out of it. So The Ugly First Draft is one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten as a content marketer.
And it's by Ann who?
Ann Hanley, you said?
Yeah, ANN, and then the word hand, and then LEY.
So lastly, for people, thank you for tuning in and watch our Ask Valor Masterminds episode. But there's one or two things, your last takeaway, that you wanted people who don't know what content marketing is, who never even thought of it until today. What would be your last words, one or two tips of advice for them?
You really need to know your customer. Like if you send out general blanketed information that doesn't appeal to your most profitable and your most influential customers, like it's going to fall on deaf ears. You can't market to everyone. You have to market to someone. So get a piece of butcher paper or a giant sticky note and write down who those people are and get specific. Are they single moms? Do they live in a certain region? Do they, get really specific about that person, because you can try to get to everybody, but you'll get to nobody. But if you fine tune your conversation with one single person, that person is going to hear you and they're going to get excited that you know them. And then they're going to want to have more conversations with you.
Awesome. Thanks. Joe, any last thoughts?
No, I took about 3 pages of sticky notes for our follow-up stuff and to tease this podcast as well. So I appreciate it. I appreciate especially the answer the public. Just a cool little tool.
It's
so
totally
Maureen, yeah, thanks for jumping on. Nice seeing you again, even though this time it's virtually. And if it was 4, 5, 6 years ago that I last saw you speak in person, thanks for joining again. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. We'll keep having these and staying as safe as we can. But from the Valor team, from me, Joe, and Maureen, thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great day. All right, take care.